Did you know that Julia Roberts, Hollywood's beloved pretty woman, has been quietly battling a rare and life-threatening condition for years? But that's just the beginning. From shocking family drama to a career that's taken unexpected turns, her story is far from the fairy tale we all thought it was. Stick around, because we're diving deep into the challenges, secrets, and surprising shifts that are shaping Julia's life today. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Born on October 28, 1967 in Smyrna, Georgia, Julia's roots were planted in bold soil. Her parents didn't just teach acting, they changed history. They ran a pioneering workshop in Atlanta that welcomed students of all races during the height of segregation. When Yolanda King, the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr., was enrolled in 1965, it wasn't just controversial, it was dangerous. Neighbors turned against them, friends vanished, but her parents refused to fold. In an old church, they trained artists and made a quiet stand for equality. Julia, just a baby then, was unaware of the legacy being forged around her, but that spirit would echo through her life. And then came a moment no one outside her family knew, until decades later. When Julia was born, her family couldn't afford the hospital bill. That's when Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King stepped in, paying the debt without fanfare. Julia didn't share that story until 2022, at age 55. She remembered Coretta arriving personally on November 2, 1967, to make sure it went through. Just months later, Dr. King was tragically lost. But that bond between the Kings and the Roberts family remained one of Hollywood's most remarkable untold stories. Julia's early years were anything but charmed. Her parents divorced just before her 4th birthday. The reasons were bitterly contested. Accusations of abandonment and mental cruelty swirled. Courtrooms replaced living rooms. Her mother remarried a man named Michael Moats, whose temper reshaped the home. Factory work meant constant relocations and instability. Julia, along with her siblings Eric and Lisa, lived in a fog of fear, their childhood marked by tension and silence. Teachers noticed. Julia missed classes and kept her head low. A stutter emerged and clung to her voice until she was 9. Acting, as strange as it sounds, helped heal it. She found strength in pretending to be someone else. Then tragedy struck with a devastating blow. In 1978, Julia's father died of cancer. He'd kept his illness hidden, hoping to shield his daughter from the truth. She was 10, and the grief swallowed her whole. She stopped speaking, couldn't sleep, and her grades crumbled. But he'd left her a gift: cassette tapes of bedtime stories. Every night, she clung to his voice until the tapes finally broke at age 13. That loss was more than emotional. It carved a space in her soul that acting would later try to fill. Meanwhile, her home life grew darker. Her stepfather's relationship with her mother deteriorated. Police were regular visitors. Her siblings moved out, seeking escape. Julia remained, navigating the storm. In 1976, her half-sister Nancy was born. Years later, Nancy would fight her own demons and sadly pass away in 2014. After nearly a decade of turmoil, Julia's mother left Moats in 1981, describing the marriage as abusive. That decision marked a turning point. She opened a new acting school and volunteered at a women's shelter. Julia, now 14, began to see a way forward. She wasn't healed, but she was no longer helpless. In high school, Julia dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. She was great at biology and adored animals, but the stage kept calling. She played the clarinet, starred in school plays, and once fainted during a frog dissection, only to land the lead role in a play that same day. Her notebooks were filled with scripts rather than equations. Her old vet said she came not to watch surgeries, but to observe people. That was the real training ground for the actress she'd become. After graduation in 1985, Julia headed for New York City with $628 in her pocket, and her sister Lisa by her side. They shared a tiny apartment with broken heating and nights spent in winter coats. Julia walked miles to auditions because she couldn't afford the subway. Rejection came fast and often, over 200 times before she landed a Clearasil commercial. That $825 paycheck bought her a SAG card and her first real taste of possibility. Back in Georgia, she had a peculiar ritual. At 7 years old, she began locking herself in the bathroom to practice Oscar speeches, using shampoo bottles as trophies. She recorded her performances and kept a leather-bound book of over 40 imaginary acceptance speeches. Even when her family had no electricity, she lit candles and continued. She once told her brother, "When I win, I'll thank you third." When she won her Oscar in 2001, she honored that promise. Her first TV gig came in 1987 on Crime Story, filmed while she had a 103-degree fever. One take was all she needed. From there, it was a slow grind. She did low-budget films like Firehouse, once even getting injured on set. But she kept going, once selling her grandfather's pocket watch just to pay rent, only to buy it back years later after making it big. In 1988, while filming Satisfaction, 19-year-old Julia met 35-year-old Liam Neeson. Sparks flew. They moved in together within weeks. The romance cost her a major ad campaign and even film roles, but she stood by it. Liam expanded her mind, gifting her 27 books and treating her like a student of life. The relationship didn't last, but the emotional depth it gave her helped shape her role in Steel Magnolias. To play Shelby's intense scenes, Julia didn't sleep for 2 full days. It wasn't for show, it was a tip from Sally Field to tap into exhaustion. It worked. For the funeral scene, she isolated herself for 3 days, surviving on crackers and water, just to mirror Shelby's broken spirit. It was dedication. But behind the accolades, she was still just that girl from Georgia, clinging to cassette tapes, walking miles to auditions, and dreaming with a shampoo bottle in hand. It was January 17, 1989, and the tension on set was thick enough to cut with a knife. Julia Roberts, still young and unpolished in the eyes of Hollywood veterans, had just wrapped a particularly tough scene when a castmate's words hit her like a slap. "That was the worst acting I've ever seen." Stunned and shattered, she disappeared from the set for 6 long hours. In an ensemble cast full of seasoned performers, she only clocked in 38 minutes of screen time. Yet that performance shocked everyone by earning her an Oscar nomination. Her most unforgettable scene, the raw breakdown following a medical emergency, was filmed in a single take. The tears you saw weren't rehearsed. Julia later admitted she wasn't acting at all. She was mourning something much deeper, something that still lingered beneath the surface. At the same time, her professional life was beginning to skyrocket. Her heart was dancing to its own rhythm. She had just fallen in love with Dylan McDermott, her co-star, after a first table read in November 1988. He passed her a folded note that simply read, "You have the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen." 19 days later, inside a cozy Russian tea room in New York, he proposed with an heirloom emerald ring. They moved into a modest $1,800 a month apartment in the West Village and lived like any other couple. Grocery runs, walking their 3-legged dog, trying to find a balance between fame and normalcy. When studio heads threatened to cut her from Pretty Woman, it was Dylan who called the director himself and begged them to reconsider. But as Julia's fame shot upward, their quiet world fell apart. Just 2 weeks before Pretty Woman premiered, she canceled the wedding. It wasn't the love that disappeared, it was the privacy. A tabloid tried to bribe their doorman with $25,000 just to get inside their apartment. That was when she knew. You can't be normal and be a superstar. Ironically, Roberts almost didn't even land the role that would define her career. The part of Vivian had already made the rounds. Michelle Pfeiffer, Molly Ringwald, Meg Ryan, Daryl Hannah, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Valeria Golino, Karen Allen, all turned it down for various reasons. On April 3, 1989, Julia auditioned. Director Gary Marshall saw something special in her, a kind of shimmering vulnerability. But even then, Richard Gere wasn't sold. So Marshall staged a meeting at Gere's apartment. Robert scribbled a note and slid it to him. "Please say yes." That tiny gesture flipped the switch. The chemistry ignited instantly, and the movie suddenly had its lead pair. That pairing became cinematic history. Yet while Gere earned $5 million plus back-end profits, eventually raking in around $12 million, Roberts was paid just $300,000. After taxes and fees, she was earning around $273 a day. Her hotel cost her $75 per night. Pretty Woman debuted on March 23, 1990, grossing over $11 million in its opening weekend. It stayed in theaters for 16 weeks and grossed over $463 million globally. Her iconic red opera gown triggered a $30 million knockoff fashion craze. The VHS tapes flew off shelves at nearly $90 each. Even Rodeo Drive's tourism spiked 27%. But for Julia, this wasn't just a career breakthrough. It was a masterclass in the economics of fame. Disney executives celebrated with bonuses. Julia walked away with insight. By 1993, she demanded $10 million per role. By 2000, she became the first woman to command $20 million for Erin Brockovich. That single deal shattered Hollywood's gender pay ceiling. But fame never arrives quietly. After McDermott, Roberts fell for Kiefer Sutherland on the set of Flatliners. They were engaged by August 1990 and preparing a June 1991 wedding, complete with an $8,000 designer gown and 425 Manolos. But in May, the fairy tale began to crumble. A young dancer named Amanda Rice told a UK paper that she had been seeing Sutherland and that he had moved into a hotel with her. She also alleged he had called Roberts an insecure ice princess. Days later, she backtracked, claiming their relationship was platonic. But by then, the damage was irreversible. Roberts was hospitalized soon after, officially for the flu. She stayed 5 days. Even through it all, she kept her engagement ring on, clinging to the hope that the dream hadn't collapsed. Then came the twist that turned tabloids into vultures. Just 3 days before the wedding, Roberts walked away. Sutherland didn't hear it from her. Someone else told him. As he moved his belongings out of their shared Beverly Hills home, Roberts was seen with Jason Patrick, his best friend. On what was meant to be her wedding day, Julia was on a flight to Ireland with Patrick. The media went into a frenzy. She wasn't just a runaway bride on screen, she was living it in real time. Years later, Sutherland acknowledged her strength. She had the courage to do what she needed, he said. And I admire that. 2 years later, in another whirlwind decision, Roberts married country star Lyle Lovett. The wedding shocked everyone. The marriage didn't last. By 1995, it was over. It felt less like love and more like a rebellion against her past. Yet in 2002, Roberts finally found her anchor, cinematographer Danny Moder. They married in a quiet ceremony and built a life far from the chaos that once defined her. Together they've raised 3 children, twins Hazel and Phineas, and their youngest Henry. After all the heartbreak and media circus, she found something priceless: peace. Still, not every return to the big screen was golden. In 1994, I Love Trouble promised breezy romance, but delivered backstage chaos. Julia Roberts and Nick Nolte couldn't stand each other. They barely shared scenes, and when they did, stand-ins were used more often than not. Julia later said Nolte could be charming but was generally repulsive. Nolte retaliated, calling her not a nice person. The feud was louder than the film itself, which flopped with both critics and audiences. But Julia never stayed down for long. In 1997, My Best Friend's Wedding reminded Hollywood why she mattered. It broke the mold. Her character didn't get the guy, and that honesty resonated. The film made nearly $300 million on a $38 million budget. In 1999, she doubled down. First came Notting Hill, pulling in $364 million worldwide. Then just weeks later, Runaway Bride smashed opening records with $35 million in one weekend. Roberts didn't just reclaim her throne, she rebuilt it, brick by brick, smile by smile. She had finally proven that a woman could endure heartbreak, chaos, and being underestimated, and still rise, again and again. It was supposed to be a comeback, the kind of reunion that reminded fans of old magic. Julia Roberts and Richard Gere together again on screen sounded like a dream, and audiences showed up in droves, pushing box office numbers past $39 million globally. Critics shrugged, but viewers were locked in nostalgia. Then, Roberts made an even bolder move, one that would shatter records and redefine her place in Hollywood. When she accepted the role of Erin Brockovich, she wasn't just acting. She was daring the industry to take her seriously beyond romantic comedies. And the gamble was seismic. The film raked in over $200 million worldwide, and Roberts became the first woman in the industry to earn $20 million for a single movie, a ceiling previously reserved for male titans like Tom Cruise and Mel Gibson. The power she carried in that role wasn't just scripted, it was personal. The Academy saw it. She swept awards season, collecting an Oscar, Golden Globe, BAFTA, and Screen Actors Guild Award. She stood on the stage, not just celebrating a win, but declaring that she had earned every second of that moment. But as the lights dimmed and the applause faded, a quiet battle began behind the scenes, one that no one saw coming. Just after marrying Danny Moder in 2002, Julia began feeling an overwhelming fatigue. Bruises appeared on her skin with no explanation. Her husband noticed before she did. What seemed like exhaustion turned out to be idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura, a rare autoimmune disorder that only affects a fraction of the population. Her own body was destroying her platelets. It was a terrifying diagnosis, and for Julia, who dreamed of becoming a mother, it felt like the ground had shifted under her. Yet, despite this diagnosis, just 2 years later, she gave birth to twins, and by 2007, she had 3 children. She beat the odds. She didn't let the illness define her. She defied it. What's more astonishing is how she kept it hidden. Julia managed the disease privately, masking symptoms with makeup, adjusting costumes, and shifting shooting schedules around IV infusions and medication side effects. At times, her platelet levels were dangerously low. One wrong fall could have turned deadly. She used every treatment available, from steroids to cutting-edge therapies like romiplostim and rituximab. Her yearly medical costs soared over $150,000, but she continued to work, film, and raise a family, all while battling an invisible enemy. And her husband, Danny, became her lifeline, the one who caught the signs before they spiraled. His attentiveness may have saved her life. Julia's resilience didn't stop at health struggles. Her family was fractured by long-standing tensions, especially with her brother Eric Roberts. In the 1990s, Julia shocked many when she sided with his ex during a nasty custody battle. She even paid legal fees to support Kelly Cunningham, helping her win custody of young Emma Roberts. That decision tore the siblings apart for years. But when Julia gave birth to her twins in 2004, something softened. Eric visited the hospital, and the walls they had built slowly came down. Julia's loyalty wasn't rooted in blood. It was in doing what she believed was right. She saw Emma caught in the middle, and she stepped in. Emma would go on to become a Hollywood star in her own right, with Julia quietly supporting her journey from the sidelines. The pain didn't stop there. In 2014, Julia's half-sister Nancy Motes died tragically at age 37. The emotional wounds between the sisters ran deep. Julia had refused to attend Nancy's wedding, citing distrust toward her fiancé. Years earlier, she had accused Nancy of taking photos of her kids without permission. Their relationship was always tense, weighed down by misunderstandings and hurt feelings. After Nancy's passing, Julia canceled all press appearances. Grief took over. The family never released Nancy's notes, and the silence surrounding her death still echoes in Julia's world. Meanwhile, the very industry that once celebrated her began to shift. Her later films like Larry Crowne and Mirror Mirror didn't find the same success. Audiences evolved, box office dynamics changed, and Julia, once the queen of the box office, found herself in unfamiliar territory. Even her beauty campaigns came under fire. In 2011, UK regulators banned her L'Oreal ads for excessive airbrushing, sparking a debate about authenticity in beauty. The very face that had once defined natural charm was now at the center of controversy. But Julia didn't fight it publicly. She stepped back, regrouped, and waited for her next move. And then, in 2023, she returned with a quiet storm. Leave the World Behind marked her re-entry into the spotlight, not on the big screen, but through Netflix. She starred alongside Mahershala Ali and Ethan Hawke in a thriller that spoke to a new generation. The streaming giant paid her a staggering $25 million, a reminder that her name still commanded power. She no longer needed theaters. Her audience was watching from their couches, and Julia proved she could still lead without the glare of a red carpet. Despite her setbacks, Julia Roberts remains one of Hollywood's most financially astute and luxuriously lived stars. Over the years, she's owned a fleet of high-end vehicles, including a black Mercedes G-Wagon and a Tesla Model X. She's been seen wearing timepieces like Cartier and Chopard, and has invested in sprawling real estate, from her eco-conscious Malibu estate to a Hawaiian retreat. Though she avoids flaunting wealth, she and Danny have flown private jets, particularly during medical emergencies. She's been insured through extensive policies that protect her film schedules, health care, and real estate assets. Her savvy business mind led her to secure back-end points in films and partner with brands strategically, ensuring residual income long after box office runs ended. The biggest lesson from Julia's financial playbook is simple: bet on yourself, diversify quietly, and protect what truly matters. So Julia's journey is full of highs, lows, and surprises. What do you think her next chapter holds? Like, comment, and subscribe for more Hollywood stories coming your way. Remember, legends like Julia don't just shine, they redefine what it means to sparkle.